Good morning again. The other evening, as it was starting to get dark, I went outside for a while. You know, after that long, hot summer, now that the weather is so nice, I really do like to get out and enjoy the cool evenings. And I bet some of you do as well. Well, it was one of those evenings, you know the kind. Everything was just about perfect. You could smell fall in the air and feel that cool evening breeze. The sun was going down, the wind was rustling through the trees, and I looked up at the evening sky. Sir?
You need a better attorney who would close registration. Registration is closed. You can, if there's anybody still in line, run them through, but after that, break it down. And I hope I threw him off rhythm.
My, oh my. The sun was starting to go down and the wind was rustling through the trees, and I was looking at the evening sky. I remembered all those days of 100-degree heat that we had not so long ago. And I thought about how those winds that were rustling through the trees, how those winds had surely brought around a change in the season. No doubt about it, they are truly winds of change. And it made me think about all the other winds of change, like the kind that are blowing right now in our own electric utility world. Flip on a light switch. We do that dozens of times a day. But I'm guessing not many of us give much thought as to what has to happen for that bulb to actually light up, or how the electricity that lights it up is made. Well, folks, that issue right there, generating electricity, that's where there are some major winds of change these days. It used to be that nearly all the electricity we used was generated at power plants that burned coal, like those owned by KMO Power in Veneta and Associated Electric in Springfield. You've heard me talk about the KMO and Associated Power plants every year at these meetings. Well, those winds of change are blowing. Remember me telling you the past few years about that new power plant Associated has been building in Oklahoma, down near Shoto. Well, folks, that new plant's finished. It went online this past summer, and winds of change, it's a combined cycle plant. That means it uses natural gas plus a special heat recovery system to generate electricity more efficiently. That new plant will also connect into this area and the grid through a new 110-mile-long high-voltage transmission line that's now being built. It'll connect into the area north of here around Jasper. That huge power plant can generate 540 megawatts of electricity. And believe you me, we needed it all last summer. Did you know that the average high temperature in July was 99.8 degrees? During late July and early August, our system set 3 new record high summer peaks. So the next time you flip on a light switch, you think about that new power plant. Now some more winds of change. A few months ago, Associated signed an agreement to buy additional renewable energy, wind power, from a wind generation farm being built in northeast Oklahoma near Pawhuska. Folks, have you ever seen one of those wind turbines up close? This past summer, I toured several wind farms in Iowa, Nebraska, and northern Missouri, and I was truly amazed at what I saw. The sheer size of them is absolutely incredible. Each farm has dozens of wind turbines, each one of them nearly 400 feet tall, and that's not much shorter than the Gateway Arch in St. Louis. Each turbine has 3 large rotor blades that turn like a fan in the wind. Each one of those blades is 140 foot long. Think about that, 140 feet long. This basketball court we're in right now is 94 feet long, so you couldn't even fit one of those blades inside this gym. In addition, last year, Associated added a 4th wind power farm up in northern Missouri. That puts the total amount of wind power available once the Oklahoma facility is completed at over 450 megawatts, or almost as much output as that big new Shoto plant that we were talking about. In fact, 1 month recently, about 5% of Associated's electric generation came from wind power alone. Now think about it this way. Now when you flip on that light switch, it's likely some of the electricity to light that bulb was generated literally by winds of change. Our environmental concerns remain on the front burner. Did you realize that since 1994, Associated has spent about $1 billion, now that's with a B, $1 billion, to meet environmental regulations at its power plants? In 2010, that amounted to over $160,000 per day in operating costs alone. And that's not even counting the new environmental requirements that EPA is planning. The EPA recently issued a draft rule regarding mercury and continues to move ahead on trying to regulate carbon dioxide emissions. Even though Associated has always been on the leading edge in installing emission reduction equipment, more changes, more expensive changes, may be required. The good news is Congress didn't pass that cap-and-trade carbon tax bill, so hopefully future environmental rate increases won't be as much as we had once expected. But nonetheless, we've already been notified by our power suppliers that starting in 2012, next January, our wholesale cost to buy electricity will increase. And I have to tell you this now, it's possible that we may have to pass that rate increase on to our members. Now, over the past few years, NUMAC has been hit hard by wholesale rate increases, and more will follow into the future. We've talked a lot about them, about the higher costs for coal, the higher cost to build new generation, and the expense of meeting those environmental regulations that we've been talking about this morning. Now, the past 2 years, NUMAC was able to hold the line. 2010 and 2011, we've been able to keep your electric rates stable and have had no general rate increases. You hear me say this each year. We do all we can to hold electric rates as stable as possible. In fact, we've passed along a general rate increase only 2 times in the past 20 years. Now, folks, we're not some big out-of-town electric company. You see us here every day. We live here too. It's really important to me to keep you completely informed about what I know is coming down the pike. As before, we expect to be able to make an announcement about next year's rates in the January newsletter. If a rate increase is required, if it's required, it could take effect as early as next January, and you could see it show up on your February bill. I'd like for you to take a look at the co-op financial report in your annual meeting material. 2010 was another strong financial year for your cooperative. The unusually cold weather and hot summer produced higher electric sales. The 2010 financial report shows NUMAC had more than $35 million in total revenues. Our operating margins were over $2.1 million and net margins were almost $3.7 million. Total co-op assets now are at over $91 million. So folks, this is what you want to hear right here, so everybody listen. Once again, I'm pleased to announce that NUMAC Electric is paying back to you, our member owners, capital credit refunds. As we've said, this is not easy to do because our wholesale power costs do keep going up. But despite that, this year we're still paying back capital credits to you that total about $1.136 million. Because NUMAC is a not-for-profit cooperative owned by members like you, the co-op can pay back capital credits, which is excess revenue left over from operating expenses. This year's payments represent 90% of the margins from 1994. This is now 14 straight years that we've been able to pay you back capital credits. How about some more good news? NUMAC will again be able to pay you another year-end power cost adjustment, a power cost adjustment refund. It will total about $610,000. Your share will be based on your electric use next month, and it will appear as a credit on the bill that you receive in December. Let's go over those two things again. $1.136 million in capital credit refunds and a $610,000 December bill credit. Folks, these past 14 years, NUMAC Electric members have received payments totaling about $16.7 million an average of more than $1 million a year. And I'm going to tell you, I'm proud of that. Folks, we all know this past year was a tragic time for severe weather. I just don't have the words to express the sadness that we continue to feel from that terrible tornado that hit that Sunday afternoon in May. The magnitude of that Joplin tornado was almost beyond belief. We can only trust in our faith that those hurting, some of them our own employees, our own family, our own friends, are finding some level of comfort and closure. The storm that day to the NUMAC system was also considerable, especially the area east of Joplin. The storm also caused significant damage to KMO's large transmission lines, which produced some lengthy power outages for up to 4,000 of our customers. But as bad as that damage was to the power supply system, compared with all the other losses we've experienced, the physical repairs are the easiest things to fix. I'm sure you also remember the weather this past winter. Bitter, bitter cold weather in January, then February storms with an 18-inch blizzard. Then another 10 inches of snow a few days later. Then temperatures down to a frigid 20 degrees below zero. Fortunately, we only had a few isolated power outages at that time, thanks to the years of right-of-way maintenance and upgrades to this distribution system. Now, speaking of system upgrades, listen to what your NUMAC operations crews have accomplished this past year. Miles of three-phase line reconductoring around Spurgeon and Sims, along KK Highway, in Bicentennial Park, around Neosho, and in the Saratoga and Bear Hollow areas. Many, many more miles of various single-phase line reconductoring, pole inspections and replacements in the Walkerville and Spurgeon areas. This year, we also expect to spend over $1.7 million on trimming right-of-way. Our crews have worked tirelessly to clear brush along feeder lines out of the Neosho, Spring City, and Anderson substations. Another big improvement is one that you can't really even see. We've installed new billing software this year. This new software is going to give you more options to pay your electric bills online through our website or through a third party like your bank. You know, all of these accomplishments, they don't just happen. I think we should show your NUMAC Electric employees our appreciation. Will all the employees stand? It's an honor to work with this great group of employees. Folks, there are about 900 electric co-ops around the country just like NUMAC. And the employees of all of them follow a set of core values, what we call the 7 cooperative principles. I talk about them out here every year, and I think it's important that we know what those are. They are voluntary and open membership to all customers, democratic control by you, the customer member, economic participation by each customer, autonomy and independence, providing education, training, and information, cooperation among cooperatives, and lastly, concern for community. These 7 cooperative principles help guide your NUMAC Electric Board of Directors in their decision-making. For their hard work and dedication, I think we need to recognize your Board of Directors. Once again, I'd also like to say thanks to the great folks here at Crowder College who work hard each and every year to make this day happen. Let's give them a round of applause. Most importantly, I want to thank you for coming to your annual meeting. Thank you for your patience and support as we work together through the tough times and the good times this past year, and as we take on the many challenges that will lie ahead. Now, in closing, I make this pledge to you each year. I pledge that we will work hard for you every single day to continue to deliver the best possible electric service at the lowest possible cost. You are the reason that NewMac Electric exists, and that's something that we'll never forget. Now, did you just feel that? Felt like there was a slight breeze in here. I guess maybe some of the outside doors are open or something. Or maybe, just maybe, it could have been some of those winds of change. Thank you.